Hello everybody! B-Metal is here! Welcome to the top 20 albums of 2021! I'm gonna go straight to it. Numbers 35 to 21 will be in the description below, but I will talk about the top 20. And I start with number 20, Bloodbound, Creatures of the Dark Realm. This is a band that I like quite a lot, and they are back into form with a non-apologetic, blistering power metal album as it should be. Despite a couple of fillers and the lack of originality, we've heard this kind of music before. Despite all of that, the album delivers what we expect from a sing-along power metal. That means bombastic choruses, enough aggression, and a huge amount of melody and hooks. That can only be successful due to the good songwriting and execution of almost all songs on Creatures of the Dark Realm. Power metal fans can't go wrong with this one. Number 19 is completely different. We're talking about Carcass, Torn Arteries. 8 years after 2013's mighty comeback album Surgical Steel, which was the album of the year back then, now Torn Arteries continues the same path of that album, but a bit rawer and less metallic, but still these amazing riffs and those big choruses that the band is famous for, and we are loving it. Despite all the qualities, as of now, it didn't hit me, it didn't have the same impact that Surgical Steel had, but still, time will tell. Maybe this will still grow on me. For now, that's why it's a bit lower on the list. Now, number 18 is also something very different. Todd Torre, Rejoice the Suffering. This is the debut solo album by the Queensryche vocalist Todd Torre. The first 4 songs on this album are just great. It's just like this punch in the face, like pure metal overdose. Very traditional metal in the lines of Judas Priest. And he showcases all his vocal abilities. The album also displays a southern metal sound reminding us of Pantera or Black Label Society. Overall, a very good album that left me with the wish to even more. I'll be waiting for the sophomore release. Number 17 is the Snyder with Leave a Scar. Twisted Sister legend, the Snyder broke our lockdown boredom with an energetic and modern sounding traditional heavy metal album. A very good album backed by a competent band and just a production. There are several summer festival anthems to sing along here that I can't wait to hear this album or some of those songs live in a summer festival. During such a difficult year, the positive message from this album were very welcomed. Number 16, Ordenogan Final Days. This band has been delighting us with solid power metal albums for a few years now. It's a modern and darker side of power metal, but still very much a power metal band in my opinion. The dark science fiction concept was the perfect thing for the band to modernize their sound. It is still, as I said, very much a power metal album, but it has also a flavor of modern metal. The songs feature fat and modern riffs, epic choruses, and melancholic orchestral arrangements. I must highlight Let the Fire Rain as one of the best songs of the year. It's a power metal delight. Despite some lows on the second half of the album, I'm still having lots of fun with Final Days. I can't wait to see them playing those songs live. Number 15, Artillery X. Artillery delivered their 10th studio record as if it was their debut, because it's ruthlessly heavy, catchy, and pure metal. The fusion of 80s thrash with traditional heavy metal is perfectly executed, creating some headbanger tunes to sing along with our fists in the air. The album is full of highly technical riffs and hooks lines combined with aggression and melody. Straightforward, with just a couple of songs as an exception, but most of the songs are between 4 and 5 minutes, so everything short, direct, and all of them to the point. A very good thrash metal album that will please new and old fans looking for that perfect mix of melody and aggression. Number 14, Therion Leviathan. One of my favorite bands of all times, definitely on this genre of symphonic metal. With Leviathan, they are revisiting their roots. A straightforward Therion album full of potential new fan favorites. While not bringing new ideas, it's a powerful, bombastic collection of songs with a good level of variability and dynamism. Several guest singers, tempo changes, lyrics in different languages, all of those choices make the album very interesting, and each song has its own character. Leviathan is a direct reaction to the complexity of the last few albums, and it's a very good album that it's simple and straightforward. Longtime fans will love those new Therion hits. Number 13, BeastinBlack Dark Connection. Of course, if you are looking for a complex, progressive music or extreme metal screams, this is not your place. But if, like me, you are into some cheesy power metal and want to have some fun, then Dark Connection is a sequence of jewels fusing modern power metal and Eurobeat from start to finish. In this context, there are no bad tracks. Anton Kabanan is a master of creating catchy music, and with BeastinBlack, he won't apologize or contain his love for the cheesiness of the 80s or European power metal. The combination of their love and belief for what you do with skillful songwriting and talented musicians makes BeastinBlack a band in strong ascendancy, and Dark Connection is a testament to it. Love it. Number 12, Exodus, Persona non grata. After a long wait, Exodus delivered a great follow-up to the already very good Blood In, Blood Out. If I didn't know the band, I would have a hard time believing that this is a thrash album written and recorded by veterans. The speed and aggression never stops. It's pure thrash metal for old timers and new fans. The production is modern and fresh, and the band was able to mix very straightforward songs with longer, more elaborated ones, usually filled with riffs and solos. All in all, very good album and a really fun thrashy ride. Number 11, Soen Imperial. Swedish drummer Martin Lopez, of course, that was with Opeth before and a little bit with Amon Amarth. He joined forces with vocalist Joey Eklof to make music that is quote-unquote melodic, heavy, intricate, and different. Soen sure isn't an instantaneously accessible music, but with a bit of listeners' patience, album after album, they have proved to be one of the most prolific creators of rewarding pieces of progressive music today. Quite honestly, I prefer any of their albums over Opeth after Watershed. From the get-go, I must say Imperial is such a joy to listen to. The album flies by with a whirlwind of emotions due to the intricate network of melodies submerged in a bliss of melancholy. Very nice album, highly recommended for prog fans. Now we are going to the top 10, And number 10 is Trivium in the Court of the Dragon. Trivium delivered the third solid album in a row. It's slightly inferior to the previous one, but it is still a very strong release. I liked especially when they kept the heaviness and in addition to that adventured to go to slightly more progressive territory with longer songs and some more dynamics. Overall, a very good album. It flows very well and I don't see it as having any fillers. The production is good and musically all members continue to step up their game. Especially Hafis singing both the harsh and the clean are much better in this album. Superb. Overall, I am sure fans will appreciate this new effort and I really liked it. So let's go to number 9. Also, very prog territory here. We go to the mighty Mastodon with Hushed and Grime. This is another very good album from Mastodon. You know, it could have been much higher in my list if it wasn't so long. So it lost some points because of that. But I do see the possibility of it growing even further on me and higher up in my ranks in the future. The album is a natural evolution from the previous albums, but with the band experimenting even more. This time, especially attention to the more atmospheric elements. Mastodon makes those with heavy, sludgy songs as well. The vocal duties are further shared and overall makes the album very dynamic. Musicianship is superb as we came to expect from those guys. Amazing prog metal album. Number 8, we go power metal again, and it's Brainstorm with Wall of Skulls. You know, those guys with a stable lineup and a sequence of good records, those guys, Brainstorm has again proven that they deserve much more attention from the metal community. Wall of Skulls is another power metal masterclass. Catchy without becoming cheesy, full of hooks without becoming kind of like happy metal, and melodic but also staying powerfully heavy. This may be their best album yet, which means a lot for the band that has been around for so long. This is actually their 13th studio album. This is another must-have for any power metal fan. Number 7, we go to the Netherlands with Asphyx, Necroceros. Recorded during the lockdown, the band's 10th studio album, Necroceros, is heavy and vicious. No room for fillers, just 10 heavy tracks in just 50 minutes. It also sounds great, clear, and bombastic. There's just something so captivating about this album for me that from the first track I was hooked. And from this, this start with the groovy, the so curious death, you get hooked and you start headbanging because it's really that kind of album. And throughout the whole album, Asphyx blend classic death metal with a little bit of doom flavor. It is revolutionary album? No way. But it's very well written, executed, and produced. This was the best album of January 2021 and remained at the top of the list during the whole year. And now we go to number 6, Witherfall Curse of Autumn. Witherfall executes excellent modern progressive power metal. It's dark and heavy and yet melodic and catchy. Dreyer, the guitar player, is a monster behind the 6 strings. Impressive speed and technique, which culminates with the instrumental, the unyielding grip of each passing day. Amazing instrumental guitar song. Overall, one of the things I dig about Witherfall is their creative freedom and lack of boundaries and or rules. The songs are different from each other, they take different genre paths, use different instruments and techniques, and there are no rules for song lengths or structures. Witherfall's Curse of Autumn is my favorite prog power metal album of 2021, and if you like that area, you can't go wrong with it. Now we reach number 5, top 5, and now I realize that this was a very prog and power metal year because number 5 is one of my favorite bands of all time, Helloween with the self-titled album. Despite the return of Hansen on guitars, obviously, and a bit of vocals, and Michael Kiske on the vocals, this album doesn't sound much different than their previous records from the Andy Darius era. It's not a bad thing, but maybe a missed opportunity that. With that said, the album is very good and shines at most moments. Skyfall is an instant classic, and many songs call back subtly to other phases of the band. But Skyfall is like a 12 minutes or something song. It's an amazing track. It's like the perfect combination of the Keeper of the Seven Keys album with the Kay Hansen experience in Gamma Ray in one track that could fit any of their 80s album era. It's an amazing track, one of the best songs of the year. All in all, the album, it's a self-titled album, which is a very bold move, but I think it's appropriate because the first album with three singers, combining the three eras of the band, and there's a little bit of everything from the Helloween history in this album, and old fans, new fans, all should love this album. It was also perfectly executed and sounds great. Highly recommended for any power metal enthusiast. Now we go to number 4, Between the Buried and Me, with the second part of Colors. Colors number 2. Of course, Colors is their masterpiece album, recognized as one of the best modern prog metal albums, and they decided to follow that album now with the second part. So Colors 2, like a good complex prog album, takes time to assimilate. With that said, it brings no surprise to the long-term Between the Buried and Me fans. Their style is solidified, and if anything, this album relates more to their early stuff than to the last couple of albums. But it's a culmination of them all. It is very dynamic and eclectic, but still heavy, especially the first half. Is Colors 2 at par with Colors, the original one? Probably not, but we will only be able to really say that after months or even years of getting used to this album. One thing is certain, it's worthy of its name already. It's a great album, so take your time with it. You are in for a journey, so enjoy it. Top 3, number 3 for me, and of course when you get to this point, it's very difficult to rank the albums, but all in all, I'll go number 3 with Rivers of Nile, The Work. This band, Rivers of Nile, is becoming one of my favorite modern prog metal bands. Last album was great, and The Work did it again, and without repeating themselves. This album is unique and very different from the previous albums, but it builds on them, and what they have done before is continuing here, and at the same time they are expanding their sound. It's really a dynamic prog metal album and not quote unquote just a death metal album anymore. Not to worry, the death metal aggressiveness is still very much present. So they still sound like themselves, like Rivers of Nile, and that's a great thing. The album functions almost as a soundtrack with great flow and storyline. This is really a great album that could have been even my number 1. I think on my Spotify wrap up, this album and a couple of songs here were some of the ones that I listened the most in 2021. All right, so we're there. We're there for the number two from one of my favorite bands of all time, Iron Maiden with Senjutsu. Dark and more melancholic album than the previous records, probably due to most of the compositions being by Harris or in partnership with someone. Because of that, this album made me immediately think and or have some callbacks to the Blaze Bailey album, especially X Factor. When it comes to music writing, this is one of the best and most consistent albums since Seventh Son, and at par with my post 80s favorite albums, A Matter of Life and Death and Brave New World. It's a bold statement, but I really liked this album. Despite the production, because the production and the overuse of keyboards really irritated me. And this is a great album, and since the release, I have been enjoying it more and more. It was by far my most listened album of 2021, and Hell on Earth my favorite song of the year. So why I didn't put this number one? Again, because I really didn't like the production and the overuse of keyboards. The album length and becoming a double CD also cost some points because I thought that was totally unnecessary. It could have been a single CD album. And then there was one band that took it over, the leadership, and won my favorite album. Before going into number one, some honorable mentions. And those are not because they're not as good as this one. It's just probably I didn't have enough time to really dig into those albums, but they left me with a sense of being albums that I will eventually enjoy a lot. Those are Rage with Resurrection Day, very nice, very old and traditional power metal band. Obscura coming back with a new lineup with a Valediction. Chemis with Deceiver. Unfortunately, I still haven't really connected with this album, but I'm probably gonna get there because this is a band that I liked a lot, and their previous albums were very, very high in my lists in previous years. Then a band that it's fun and cheesy as well is Manimal with Armageddon. Came very late in the year, so I'm still not fully used to it. And Portraits at One with None, a very nice band for those who like Merciful Fate. I still can spend some more time with that one to really enjoy it. I also want to mention my biggest disappointments. One band that I love a lot, Dream Theater, but I didn't really get it this new album. A View from the Top of the World has some good moments, but I expected much, much more from the band. Evergrey, another band that I like it a lot, Escape of the Phoenix. There is one song there, I can't remember the name right now, that I loved it, but the album really fell flat for me. Full of Hell, completely different grindcore kind of band. Their first album, I loved it. But Garden of Burning Apparitions didn't really work for me. Another band that I love, I've been to so many of their concerts. I really like them live. I loved some of their albums. But Architect's new album, For Those That Wish to Exist, really shows to me the path of a lot of metalcore bands take that become very poppy sounding, very radio friendly, and I really, really didn't like this new album. And one of the most dramatic changes of sounds that I've ever heard in my life is Death Heaven. I mean, that album, I have a blank now on the name of that with the pink cover. That album was really an amazing album. The other two albums that they released after that, I also own the vinyl. I really like it, but now they came with Infinite Granite and doesn't even sound remotely like the same band, which by itself is not a problem, but I also hate it. how they sound. I really hate it. So that one didn't work for me either. So let's go to the number one. Number one is Gojira with Fortitude. This album came earlier in the year and stayed at the top of the list. They really knocked this one out of the park. A great album, which we'll certainly, I hope, to see in many other year-end lists as well. They were able to masterfully combine the old-style Gojira with experimentation and ambience sounds. As a result, the album is diverse and super interesting. On top of it, it all comes down to great songwriting. There are no bad songs, and even better, there are a handful of great ones. For example, I love Amazonia, I love Into the Storm. Yes, some of those songs are different and not as heavy. For example, The Chant. But in as an album, all one after another, in the flow, it all works. This is to me a 21st century masterpiece. I don't use this word often, but to me, Fortitude is already a top of the decade contender. So that's it. That's my list. It's not a competition. It's just my opinion. It's just what I like it. You can't argue with what I liked it. But I really loved those albums, and I hope you can learn something from it, discover a new album that you didn't see during the year, and enjoy it. So thanks for being here, for being listening to the channel. This was a full year with the channel live, and I wish you a happy 2022, and be mad always.